And I think education is one of the factors that is in the heart of what can bring about a social transformation. It's education.
When you talk about the role of education, I think it's important to us what kind of education and education for whom? Because in Latin America, we have education. We have, many countries are now talking about being illiterate free, but yet we still don't make the connection between the class structure, right? The class lens that enable us to see that.
The issue with education in Latin America is not only the illiteracy that still exists. Bolivia and Venezuela were able to eliminate illiteracy after Cuba, which had already done that long time ago. But in the rest of Latin America, there's still illiteracy. There is still illiteracy in Colombia. But then comes the question of what are people being educated, which is a equally important question both in Latin America and also in Canada. So if you look in Colombia, for example, any critical educator at the university level faces death threats. Anytime when you start questioning the establishment, right away you're labeled as a guerrilla or a communist, and you may risk your life just when you walk out of the university onto the parking lot. When you're walking to your car, you might be killed. So that is the brutal reality. Students and educators who are engaging in critical dialogue, they run the risk of losing their lives. So here in Canada, where we don't run this risk, we should take advantage of this freedom of expression that we have for now. Because if we don't exercise these rights, we might easily lose them eventually without realizing that we're losing these rights. Only after we've lost them, we'll realize, and we'll be paying the price that Colombians are paying. So it's important to use these rights. It's important to provide critical education where students are taught to think critically, ask questions. And I'm sure, a lot of people say that, oh yeah, sure, that's their goal, educating. But when you look at the content of the curriculum in high school or even, at university level courses, then it becomes a different matter. Then it really becomes clear of whose agenda is being supported and, what kind of things are helped to be reproduced. When you start talking about class and Marxism, you're either labeled as too idealist or not understanding how the economy works, or you're something from the past, basically, which is no longer alive, or you're simply ignored. There are many different ways that such students and academics are silenced. I personally believe in liberatory education, which is the kind of education that Paulo Freire spoke about, education for the oppressed, right? Which is, the heart of it is this process of conscientization that I mentioned earlier, and also it is a transformative form of education. It not only informs, it not only encourages you to ask questions, but it also makes you engage, become active participant in the transformation of society. And part of that, he says, is a dialogue, and what a dialogue is, he defines it as a horizontal relationship of love. In other words, it's not a hierarchical relationship. It's a relationship of equality where everyone's right to express themselves is respected and everyone's contribution is taken as some kind of a collective construction of knowledge. So I think that it's important to start thinking about education along these lines and actually practice it.
Thank you so much for being with us and for educating us into what is the purpose of education. We always, have this idea education's the solution, but what kind of education I think is just as important. Education that tells us that an elite should control and that we should all be obedient, or an education that helps us look at the world more critically. And
the silence people.
Good afternoon and welcome to News Now, your daily community news program for Wednesday, April 7th, 2010. I'm your host, Sasha Allison, Lady Locks, and joining me in the studio today are Butterfly, Melissa, and Andrew. On today's show, I'll be interviewing Diane Adams, and she is Regina's regional First Nations president, university president, and we'll be speaking about the only First Nations university that will be under closure. Then next, Butterfly will be also speaking to some local youth and mentors from a former program here in the Jane and Finch area that has also been closed. And we're going to be speaking to these young people and the effects of that closure. And we will be taking you inside the headlines, covering your local and international news. All this and your community listings right now on News Now. I don't hear. Okay, I don't hear the music. There we go. Welcome back to News Now, and you're listening to your host, Sasha Allison, Lady Locks, and joining me in the studio are Butterfly, Melissa, and Andrew. So today is Wednesday, April the 7th, and Butterfly is going to start us off with our weather.
All right, suke. It's rain out there. So it's going to be like this for most of the week. It's 12 degrees outside. It will be a high. It's been a high of about 18, and it'll be going down a low to 11 degrees. On Thursday, tomorrow, there will be rain throughout the day, just like today, with your 15 degrees as your high. Friday will be mostly cloudy, 8 degrees. Saturday, mostly cloudy at 11 degrees. And Sunday, 15 degrees, partly sunny. And Monday of next week will be 16 degrees, partly sunny. You're up next.
Okay, and I'm going to start us off with some international headlines. It appears that the Thai Prime Minister has declared a state of emergency in Bangkok, using the powers of the army to restore order after weeks of disruptive street protests by anti-government demonstrators. The announcement came Wednesday after protesters broke into Parliament and senior government officials had to be evacuated by helicopter. Some lawmakers scaled the compound's walls to escape. The government had already placed Bangkok under the strict Internal Security Act, but a state of emergency includes more sweeping powers. It gives the military authority to restore order and allows authorities to suspend certain civil liberties and ban gatherings of more than 5 people. The so-called red shirt protesters are demanding that